Good day, and thank you for joining us for another edition of In Conversation with AARP in the Virgin Islands. I'm Troy Schuster, State Director for AARP in this territory. AARP in the Virgin Islands state offices work is to advocate for persons of all ages with a special emphasis on the 50 plus segment of our population through relevant legislation, membership on keyboards, commissions, and other committees, and providing timely, accurate information and resources to help our constituents navigate public and private services. Over the years, AARP has worked on bills, resolutions, and public policies with the various sitting legislators and administrations. Each issue considered had the potential to have a tremendous impact in the Virgin Islands one way or another. Today's show will highlight a list of bills which AARP-VI has worked on over the past year and on legislations being worked on currently. Joining me today is Pamela Toussaint. And Pamela Toussaint is our Associate State Director of Advocacy and Community Outreach for the state office here in the Virgin Islands, to speak with me and with you about where things stand on legislations of 2022 and now beginning 2023. So, Pam, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much, Troy, for having me. I'm actually, quite excited to be on the show today and really share with the general public the work that we've done in 2022 and looking ahead of 2023, which we're in currently, and the work that we're working on right now that, like you said earlier, would have tremendous impact on Virgin Islanders everywhere. So, yes, thank you for inviting me to today's show.
Yeah, thank you for actually being on the show with me. For our listening and viewing audience, Pamela, our ASD of Advocacy and Community Outreach, and Noemi Garcia, our ASD of Communications and Community Outreach, are the two producers of this show. You don't usually see them in front of the camera. They're behind the scenes. Noemi Garcia is in the background right now, controlling our lower thirds and all of that stuff for this show. So I want to start by thanking Pam and Noemi for always lining up all of our guests and producing this show and come up with all the questions that you hear me asking our guests. They are really the driving force behind the show. I'm just the face out in front. So, but now we have Pam in front of the camera. One of these days, I'm gonna bring Noemi in front of the camera too to be on the show with me. So,
Awesome.
again, thank you all for all of the good work that you
Sure.
do in bringing this
Mhm.
show to our listening and viewing audience. And so, starting off, first of all, I'd like to remind our listeners and viewers of what AARP is really all about. You've heard me say it many times, but it's worth saying again. Uh, Starting with what AARP is not. We're not an insurance company. Please remember that. There are AARP branded insurance products that are available through through insurance companies, but we're not an insurance company. So, please, if you have questions about insurance, don't ask us those questions because we really can't answer, but you can ask us how to get in contact with the people who can give you those answers, and we'd be happy to provide you with email addresses and phone numbers so you can reach out to those insurance providers. At our heart, AARP is a social mission organization. And going along with our social mission mandate, we are a lobbying agency, an advocacy agency, as well as a community outreach agency. And our community outreach is done to support our advocacy, to educate people on the work that we've done, to educate people, the older population, so that they can be empowered to choose how they live as they age. But the pinnacle of that is the advocacy, working on legislation, working on public policy, approaching our elected officials, our governor, our legislators, so that we can effect changes in policy. And that's really the pinnacle of our work. And that's what we want to discuss today in our show, Pam is our Associate State Director of Advocacy. She leads our advocacy work across the territory. She lives in St. Thomas and works in our St. Thomas office. We have a satellite office in St. Thomas. Our main office is in St. Croix. And Pam is one who is interacting with our elected officials on a daily basis to help to bring about positive change in public policy here in the Virgin Islands, to make the Virgin Islands a more livable community, and again to empower our older population to choose how they live as they age. So, with that, Pam, tell us a little bit about your views on advocacy and your work. Just,
Sure.
what are your thoughts on what you do?
Sure. So, I mean, I think overall, just looking at the work that ARP Virgin Islands has done over the years, we've made significant strides as it relates to addressing, the concerns of Virgin Islands, a range of issues. But particular of importance is those issues that are impacting caregivers. I myself am a caregiver, so I understand the trials and tribulations and the blessings and the discomfort sometimes that comes along with navigating the journey of caregiving, and to know that caregiving is one of our main priorities. Especially looking at our advocacy work, it pleases my heart very much so that we focus in on how to help our caregivers, whether it's looking at financial planning, estate planning, looking at laws that reform the probate code, the guardianship system, all of those things in line with our mission to really be champions for positive change and deliver value through our advocacy work. So again, like I said, having that opportunity to work in this capacity, being a caregiver and knowing several other caregivers and what they're going through, and seeing how we can work collectively with our state volunteers, our colleagues on the national side, our administrators, our elected officials, to really truly see how we can move legislation that impacts everyone and just makes it the Virgin Islands on a whole a better place to live. So that's my views as it relates to the work that we do and the impact that we've been having with folks over the almost 20 years plus that we've been in the territory, and serving over 22,000 members of ARP is not only a privilege, but it's also an honor. I too, before even joining ARP, was a member of ARP, so I definitely benefit from having ARP in the territory, and being a part of a nationwide organization that has millions of other members who from benefit from them. So yes, that's my take on advocacy and the work that we do here in the territory.
Yeah, and it's so exhilarating that we are Virgin Islanders. We live here. This is our home. You, me, Noemi Garcia, Sherilyn Poxon, our other AARP employee, and that we're able to live here at home in these beautiful islands and work for a great organization, AARP, and bring about wonderful change in our home, in the place in which we live, in the place that we love, and bring about this wonderful change for our family, our friends, our neighbors, our fellow Virgin Islanders. So it's really a great gift, AARP is, and also a great gift to work for this organization and to bring about positive change here. So jumping right in, we don't have a whole
Mhm.
lot of time on this show,
I know.
but looking at, yeah, and the time passes quickly. Looking at some of the bills that we worked on last year, and we're just going to run through them
Sure.
really briefly at a high level. So, looking at the Government of the Virgin Island Retirees Return to Work Act, and we supported this and advocated for this. So, Pam, tell us a little bit about
Sure.
what that does for the pool.
Sure, absolutely. So, I will say that we began an impressive 2022 in the spirit of collaboration and really reaching our goals with community stakeholders. I have to really thank our state volunteers who serve in the advocacy team, as well as community stakeholders and the elected officials, because, honestly, without their support of ARP, a lot of these legislations just wouldn't become law, and as well as the Brian Roach administration. So, our elected officials has worked hand in hand with us, and they've already made that commitment for 23 that they're going to be working with us to pass meaningful legislation in this current year. So just looking back, rather, because as I said, as we know, we're in 2023, but 22, we did, as you say, support the government of the Virgin Islands Retirees Return to Work bill, and it's bill number 34-0171. And what that does, it really relates to the service retirement annuity, and it allows retirees to re-enter the government services and retain their annuity while still paying into the retirement system, commonly known to folks as GRS. So, there's no question that personnel or lack thereof has been a challenge for government entities. We see it a lot of times where a lot of times the services are just not able to be rendered to us because there's just not enough staff. And having the opportunities for our retirees to re-enter into the system without having any impact on their annuity really truly benefits not just the retirees from a financial aspect, but even the general public, because now you have the resources in place that actually service you when you walk into the government entity. So we were proud to, lend us support in terms of having our volunteers, whether it's writing letters, writing emails, calling government officials, calling the legislators, letting them know that this is a bill that we would like to get passed. So as of now, it is law. And thanks again to the collaborative work of our friends, we were able to get this passed, and it's now a law in the territory where our retirees can truly enter into the system. So again, it couldn't be done without the work of everyone. So it's a lot of retirees have actually started to go back into the system. Some of even our state volunteers have re-entered the system. So we're seeing it really, being put to work. So, and that's what we want to be able to do, is pass legislation that actually you can actually see the impact and feel the results of it.
Yep, and I'm glad that you mentioned our community stakeholders. We could not do all the work we do without our community stakeholders.
Absolutely.
And at AARP, I can say that we are experts in community organizing. Each one of us has been well trained in the art and the science and the skill of community organizing, and we're always seeking to build coalitions around issues, around certain topics. And with these coalitions of community stakeholders, we're able to really advance um, the policy. The next one is about behavioral health, and this
Yeah.
is an inaugural bill that was proposed by Governor Bryan, and we worked on it. Our employee, our colleague Sherilyn Pogson, who works for AARP, is a member of NAMI, and NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and it's the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for those who are struggling with mental illness. And so Sherilyn is a member of NAMI. She does a lot of work with them, and she then had a part in helping to craft this legislation that came down from Government House. And so tell us a little bit more about that, because Governor Bryan just signed this into law also.
Yes, yes, yes. And this is a significant move, a positive move rather, in the direction when it comes to addressing the mental health challenges in the territory. There's no secret that we do have a mental health crisis, and we really need to commend the authors of this bill. The administration, the Brian Roach administration, as well as the sponsoring senator and senators, and all the senators rather, who voted in support of it, because again, what this does is really focusing on how do we provide the services that we need locally for not just those who, Virgin Islands, who are facing mental health challenges, but also their families. Because you mentioned that one of our colleagues is a member of NAMI. So of course, whether it's in the capacity that she's an ally, or even, someone that's taking care of someone with mental illness, we all are impacted by it. And especially being caregivers, we understand that having your family have that proper care is what we all want. We want to know that they're taken care of, and not just taken care of, but taken care of locally. Right now, we don't have a facility in place in the territory, so a lot of our loved ones are actually transported off island to the mainland to to seek those services. So we talk about the emotional burden as well as the financial burden that it causes on our caregivers, and also to on the clients themselves, on our loved ones who have to leave their homes in order to get the care that they need. So one thing that stuck out for me, for this bill, and for our colleague as well, is the fact that it not just provides a comprehensive plan that really focuses on mental health, but there's also provisions in there to actually build a behavioral health facility, for those to treat those individuals. And again, that's a key thing, for ARP, being that it services not just, again, those who are dealing with mental health challenges, but also their caregivers. That to know that your loved one remains at home, in a facility which is housed by, or managed rather, by Virgin Islanders. The treatments are offered by them. They're seeing people that they know, and we know, studies have shown that people do better when they're in a familiar setting, when it comes to their healthcare. So again, for me, I think that's one of the key things, is being able to really, tackle this issue, not just keep talking about it, but really putting our money where our mouth is, and say that we need to address it. So
Right.
this bill, which is now, it's bill number 34-0279, and it's now an act number 8688, really focuses on dealing with mental health in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So I'm proud to say that we supported it from, like you said, our colleague helping to draft the legislation, even testifying, at the hearing, and on the back end advocating through our volunteers and other members of our staff, by calling the legislators as well as the governor, and encouraging them to support it. So it's now law. Wonderful.
Yep. Excellent. Excellent. AARP is well known for being very diverse and inclusive, not only in its hiring and human resource practices, but also for the general public. We're always working toward respect and social inclusion for all people. And so this next bill is all about that, a Virgin Islands Civil Rights Amendment, um, working against discrimination based on sexual orientation. So, if you will tell us about the Civil Rights Amendment, and
Sure.
um, and how it protects the LGBTQ, or the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. I always have to think about the order of those
I
letters.
know.
Plus population here in the Virgin Islands, the LGBTQ
Right.
population.
Absolutely. And again, it comes down to the fact that people, it's a people's bill. That's how I look at it. It's truly a people's bill. No matter what your orientation is, you shouldn't be discriminated, against, whether it's in housing or even, lending institutions. We've seen where, members of that community and their families. I myself, I am an ally of the community. I am a member of several ally organizations here in the territory that support the community. So I understand the plight of members of the community. So having this, bill in place, which actually makes it, against the law to discriminate against folks in this community, is an awesome push when it comes to inclusion and diversity. So again, like I mentioned, I call it the people's bill, because again, it's not just for one person, it's for everyone, and it's all about inclusion and diversity, and ensuring that the rights of people are protected. It's part of being an American. That's what our troops go out and they fight for, our civil liberties. So here in the territory, again, addressing that issue for, and I know I'm going to say the acronym wrong, but Troy, the LGBTQ plus,
That you got it.
community. Thank you. It's truly, a wonderful opportunity for us to show our support for them, and their family members and other allies, friends as well, who support them. So again, what it ends up saying is, If you discriminate against someone, you're actually breaking the law. And, and there's penalties behind of that. So again, we went ahead and we made sure that we wanted to support um, this bill that is now law in the territory that prohibits folks from being discriminated based on their sexual orientation.
Wonderful. Each one of these bills that we're discussing has so much to be said, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
we can do an entire show on each one of them. Unfortunately, we don't have that amount of time, so we're just going to have to keep pushing forward and on to the next one. So, the next one is all about election reform
Yes,
and the
yes.
no excuse provision for absentee voting. Now, no excuse sounds like you can never get an absentee ballot, but it means actually just the opposite. So tell us about this no excuse provision for absentee voting.
Sure. So the bill that we worked on is bill number 34-0149, which our lawmakers actually voted in the affirmative to to reform elections, specifically talking about no excuse absentee voting. Prior to this bill, folks had to present some sort of what is a medical reason or other reasons or an excuse in this case to receive an absentee ballot. However, with the onset of COVID, we saw that folks didn't have the capacity to, or didn't feel safe rather, to walk into the election sites and actually vote in person. So this bill was actually introduced almost 2 years ago, and it was on a temporary measure where folks didn't have to provide any excuse, like I mentioned, in order for them to get the absentee ballot in order to vote. Um, Fast forward, this year we did, well, 2022, we worked with a member of the Senate. Actually, it was Senator Francis Heiliger we worked with, along with the election system of the Virgin Islands, to make this a permanent statute in the Virgin Islands, where moving forward, and it was proven even last election, where you did not need to have an excuse in order for you to receive an absentee ballot. And we saw, an uptick in the number of individuals that actually participated in the election of the past year, as well as using the absentee provision, as an option. So it works. It's working in terms of driving the numbers up, encouraging people to have different options to vote. And that's what it ends up being. How do we get more people to exercise their right to vote? You don't have a voice if you don't vote. Simple as that. And it's important for people to go out there and do their civil liberty again. It's something that we fought for, and we have that right, and exercising your right, and now you have the option of there's no excuse for not voting, basically. So yeah.
Exactly. And the probably the last one we're going to discuss today, because we're down to just about
Oh
five
my
minutes, is
goodness.
the yeah, time moves. The Notarial Act and Electronic Wills Act,
Sure.
electronic notary, electronic wills. So
Mhm.
tell us briefly about those.
So, again, coming off of the COVID pandemic, and now we're in the endemic, we saw a lot of individuals not having, again, because of safety concerns, not wanting to leave their homes. However, business has to happen, and one of the business has to do with estate planning and just putting your affairs in order. We saw the untimely dying of our family members because of COVID, and again, because of that, folks decided, okay, this is the time that I really need to put things in order for my family members. So we worked alongside the Uniform Law Commission, and we were able to bring two laws to the territory: the Notarial Act, Bill number 34-0155, and the Electronic Wills Act. 34-0156. And what that allows is it empowers individuals, despite their physical or geographical barriers, to be able to access digitally safe options when it comes to notarizing documents, and even putting together a will. So again, the onset of COVID, while in one aspect it was detrimental, it also opened our eyes to a lot of things that we needed to do locally in the territory to not just protect our vulnerable population, but just to be able to give people different options so that people have an opportunity to say, if in person doesn't work, then I'm able to do it virtually. So these two laws are now in the Virgin Islands, and it really works to the advantage of Virgin Islanders seeking to, like I said, put their affairs in order. So yeah, so the Uniform Law Commission has been very, very instrumental, alongside our Uniform Law Commission, which is Tom Bolt, Attorney Tom Bolt, working alongside him and several other senators. We were able to bring these two laws into the territory.
Yep, and you mentioned Uniform Law Commission. I wanted to just go a little bit deeper into that so people can understand what we're referring to. So the Uniform Law Commission is a national commission across
Hmm.
the United States that brings together attorneys from each state and territory to look at ways in which they can make laws uniform across the states and territories, so that as business takes place or as people move, as they relocate from one state to the next, it's all very uniform and seamless and makes everything a lot easier. And so each state and territory has uniform law commissioners, people commissioned to serve on the Uniform Law Commission. Here in the Virgin Islands, we have two uniform law commissioners, and that's Attorney Yvonne Tarps as
Hmm.
well as Attorney Tom Bolt. Both of them are on St. Thomas. And so they attend these meetings and they work on these uniform acts of the Uniform Law Commission. And then AARP is a major partner of the Uniform Law Commission. We do a lot of work with them on the national level.
Hmm.
And then we look to see which ones Uniform Law Commission acts will support the 50 plus population and or their caregivers. And so we see that with the Electronic Notarial Act and the Electronic Wills Act, not only does it support the older population, but also their caregivers who need to do business on their behalf, etc. And so we chose those two acts last year to institute to implement here in the Virgin Islands. And we do a lot of work with our uniform law commissioners here locally, and we get them to testify. We'll usually see Attorney Tom Bolt testifying
Hmm.
on these issues, and so he's a great partner of ours here at AARP. And so we're almost out of time, but looking
Oh wow.
toward the next show, next week, we will talk about a great federal win that
Yes.
AARP participated in, because again, we lobby everywhere from Capitol Hill to every state and municipality, and then we're going to look at our advocacy priorities for 2023
23.
coming up. Yeah,
Yes.
so we have a lot to talk about, but Pam, thanks for being on the show
Wonderful.
with me today, and we look forward to having you on the next show.
Alrighty. Thank
Okay,
you.
have a
See you
great day.
then. All right. You too. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.